Hello, my name's Dave. Thank you for clicking on my video. This particular video will be dealing with the process of migrating from Windows 7 to Windows 10. I'm going to try to help make that as painless as possible for you and with as small of a financial investment as possible. These recommendations are based on my own experience, having migrated a dozen computers from Windows 7 to Windows 10 over the course of about 5 weeks. Some of these were for myself or family members, and some were for a 501c3 with which I am involved. Now, I found the ease or difficulty to vary wildly between these various systems, even between systems that on the surface appeared to be twins. I had one Dell laptop, finished the process in a couple of hours. What I thought was an identical laptop struggled for over 2 days. I finally gave up and did a workaround in order to do that one. Now, your mileage may vary, but if you follow the steps that I'm outlining in this video, you might avoid some of your difficulties. Well, the first thing you're going to want to do is collect some basic data about your computer. Does it actually meet the Windows 10 minimum requirements? They recommend a 1 gigahertz or faster processor. I would say that is minimal and it will give you unsatisfactory experience. I would say get it up above 1.5 gigahertz and preferably 2 threads or more. Second, they recommend 1 gigabyte of RAM for a 32-bit system, 2 gigabytes for a 64-bit system. The systems I've worked with are 64-bit systems, and I think 2 gigabytes is small. Hard drive size. They recommend 32 gigabytes or larger with 20 gigabytes free. I think that is laughably small, but your mileage may vary. They also have some graphics recommendations. I think most will meet those. Something you might want to look at, but for example, everyone today has better than an 800 by 600 display. At least I think everyone does. So does it meet Windows 10 minimum requirements? The second thing that you'll want to investigate is how much data is currently on your C drive, your hard drive, your operating system drive. That'll be important. The third thing you'll want to know is, do you have your Windows 7 license key? If things go south somewhere, you may need to re-enter that. And what about licenses to other software, for example, Microsoft Office? After you've collected this data, then you'll want to start collecting some material. And in particular, you're going to want to have media to write some software to. I'm going to recommend that you consider thumb drives. Optical media can work, but I think thumb drives are the best option for a couple of reasons at least. If you want to do optical media, there are other videos that will tell you how to do that. I'm not going to deal with it. But specifically, I'm going to recommend today, 1, an external drive for all of your data. Don't have it on your operating system drive. If you've got text documents, pictures, music files, whatever, on your operating system drive, it's filling it up and, in the long run, slowing it down. And for our purposes today in migration, it will be much easier for you if you get that stuff off of that drive onto an external drive. Today, even 4 terabyte drives are not expensive, unless you get an SSD, but you don't need an SSD for your data drive. And as far as sources, there are a number of manufacturers of USB drives. I don't have particular feelings about any of them. I think all of them make reliable products. You can find sources that do recommendations and make your own decision. But 1 terabyte, 4 terabytes, whatever you think fits your case. The next thing you're going to want is 2 8 gigabyte USB thumb drives. One of these will be for your Windows installation media. They say 8 gigabytes or more. I found that an 8 gigabyte drive is fine. The other is for what's called a recovery environment boot drive, and I'll explain more about that in a little bit. So, 2 8 gigabyte thumb drives. Then you'll also want a thumb drive that's large enough to hold 2 images of your hard drive. I would suggest probably in most cases a 128 or a 256 gigabyte thumb drive should be adequate for you. But this is one reason that you'll want to know how much stuff is currently on your hard drive. If you have a 1 terabyte hard drive on your computer and you've filled it up with data and all kinds of other stuff, well, you're going to have a larger drive to put your images on. And that 4 terabyte drive might be the one that you put the images on. But in any case, alternatively, instead of doing images, you could do clones of your drive. And I'm going to mention 2 steps where you'll want an image or a clone. And Macrium, the software package I'm mentioning, can do clones. There are others that can do clones as well. But if you do the clone route, you'll need a separate drive for each of those clones. If you do images, they can be stored in the same location. The next step, you've got your media, you've collected your data. The next step is to download some tools, and they're all listed in the notes below. I'd recommend you just go ahead and get them all while you're doing it, but then you'll use them in the sequence that I'm about to explain. This is an outline. I'm not going into detail today. It's just an outline. And all of these packages that I'm recommending are free software. There's some of them that offer a paid version, but you don't need the paid version. Just get the free version. Now, I have no relationship with any of these companies. I have no investment in any of these products. I simply find them to be good products that work well for the intended tasks. And as I've said elsewhere, your mileage may vary, but these are products that I like and I find work well. So then, having collected your system data, your media, your thumb drives and or other media, and the software tools that I'm recommending, then migrate all of your data files off of your C drive onto that external drive that I mentioned, 4 terabytes or whatever it is. Migrate text, pictures, music, whatever you can, migrate over. I'm going to make some separate videos detailing each of the following steps after this. It'll take me a little while to get them all up, but I'm going to do it. The next step is to use Macrium Reflect. This software package will allow you to do 2 things. One, it'll make a recovery environment USB drive for you, which I mentioned earlier, one of those 8 gigabyte drives. And the other one, other task that it'll do for you is to make an image of your C drive. And that's what I was recommending, the 128 or the 256 gigabyte drive. I think in most cases that'll be adequate, unless, as I said, you have a large drive and you've just filled it up with other stuff. Use Macrium Reflect. Make those 2 thumb drives. The next step is actually several steps, but it's making sure you're fully updated. I found it best for Windows 7 to be fully updated before beginning migration. And to update, I'm going to suggest 3 specific processes. First, use the Windows Update tool in your control panel. Now, if your results are like mine, you may have some updates fail, and you'll need to research on how to fix that. That's beyond the scope of this video, and I don't know how much I'll be able to show you of that in later videos. If I have opportunity, I will. But you'll need to research how to fix your specific failed update. Point is, make sure all of the recommended updates are installed from Microsoft. Then, I recommend you update your drivers. Some might say it's not necessary, but I found it to be helpful. and I found IObit's Driver Booster to be very useful. This is one of the packages I said has a paid version. You don't need the paid version. If you really like it and you decide you want it, that's up to you. For my purposes, I found their free version to do the job nicely. The next phase of updating is using a product called Belarc Advisor, B-E-L-A-R-C. This software will generate a profile of your system. It takes a few minutes, and then you save that profile to your data drive, your USB drive that I mentioned earlier. Don't save it to the C drive. You're going to want it. Generates a profile of your system. You save it as a file, and there's a lot of information here, but there are two specific areas of information that are of importance for this process of migration. One is to look at your software licenses. It should have developed a list of those for you. Any paid software that you have licenses for, do a copy and paste of that section. Copy it, paste it into a text editor, and then print a hard copy of that information. Keep that hard copy with your Windows licenses, Windows, other Microsoft licenses. The second area of interest in this software package is it will point out software issues. Some of those software issues are packages that are end of life, and you really just need to uninstall them. If they're end of life, they're unsupported, and they become security hazards for you. I know that there are some that you just don't want to live without, but there are other packages that will do the same job, and best practice is to get rid of the end-of-life software. So you'll uninstall those. The other thing that will tell you in this section is which packages need to be updated. And take that seriously. It will help you. On the software that you uninstall, for that you will be using your control panel, going to Programs and Features, and then Uninstall Program. There may be some cases where it'll say to continue you need to restart now. Go through the process, uninstall all those packages. And even having done that, sometimes remnants will remain. If you have difficulty uninstalling a program, or if a program is not even mentioned in your list of installed software, then a program called Revo Uninstaller may help you. This is a powerful tool, and it is possible to break your system with it. But by having made your recovery environment and having made your image, you can restore your system if you need to. Revo Uninstaller can help you get rid of remnants of packages that do not uninstall cleanly using your Windows Program Uninstaller. Again, on each of these packages I'm mentioning, I will make some separate videos. Once your system is fully updated and all of your end-of-life software is removed, now make another image of your system using Macrium Reflect. This will be your first fallback if you need it, should the migration give you major issues. I would still, however, retain that first image that you made back before you started making changes. Retain that image for now. If you want to go all the way back to square one, you can. You'll have made an unsuccessful attempt at migration, but no harm, no foul. Your system is exactly where it was when you started. You'll have lost nothing except some time. So, having made your drive images, your recovery environment, having updated your system as fully as possible, having collected your software licenses, now you're ready to begin the migration to Windows 10. And as long as your Windows 7 is an activated copy of Windows, you have a valid license, your Windows 10 will also activate. But as I said, you should make sure you have that key in case you need it. All goes well, you won't need to re-enter it, but there are some cases where it might be necessary. So now, you go to the Microsoft site listed in the notes below and follow their process for making a thumb drive of Windows 10. This is not the same as a regular ISO drive, but for our purposes it's close enough. If you go to Microsoft while on a Linux system, you'll get the message, you've been routed to this page because the operating system you're on won't support the Windows 10 Media Creation tool, and we want to make sure you can download Windows 10. So they offer you the option of downloading a Windows 10 ISO. Go ahead and get that. And then you'll burn it to a USB drive, 8 GB thumb drive again, and use it. But if you go there from an upgradable system, in other words Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 8.1, you go there from a system like that, instead it will route you to a different page that allows you to create or to use what's called a media creation tool. And this will save you a step. Now, I would say don't run it as an in-place upgrade, the first option that they give you on that page, but instead use the second option to create a Windows 10 thumb drive, as if you're going to use it on another system. I did that, and then I was able to use that same thumb drive on each of the systems that I later upgraded, or migrated, whatever you want to call it. They'll walk you through the process of using that media creation tool to create your Windows 10 thumb drive. After you've made that, one more thing you need to do. Don't run it yet. One more thing you need to do. You'll want to uninstall some of your security software. If you have Microsoft Security Essentials installed, Windows 10 will choke on it. Get rid of it now. It's not compatible with Windows 10. Go figure. There are some other anti-malware products that also may interfere. You'll have to make a decision about yours. Maybe do some research, see if you can find out if your anti-malware solution is a problem for Windows 10 upgrades. You know how to use a search engine. Go ahead and look for it. I found that Trend Micro, their software solution, their anti-malware solutions, and Windows Defender were okay. They didn't interfere. But I did go ahead and uninstalled my free version of Malwarebytes anti-malware, sometimes called MBAM, MBAM. I uninstalled it. There are some others that might be better to uninstall. Now, this is one of the places where you're going to want that list of software licenses that Belarc produced for you, because when you go back to reinstall it after you migrate to Windows 10, then you'll want those license keys. Having come this far, give yourself a break. Go get yourself a cup of coffee. Take a breather. You've accomplished a lot. And there's no guarantee that the next step is not going to give you worries. It could literally take a long time. So get yourself centered. As the Oracle says to Neo, have a cookie. Once you're calm, collected, ready to go, plug that Windows 10 thumb drive back in and click and run setup. If all goes well, this thumb drive version of Windows 10 will migrate you from Windows 7 to Windows 10 in a few hours. Average 2 to 4 hours. That was my experience. If it takes longer, let it work. Walk away. Don't interrupt it. Just let it work. Go do something else. Let it work. If you interrupt it, you'll give yourself headaches. Now, hopefully it will complete. And if it does, by the time you're done with the process, how long has it taken you? How many hours? How many steps have been involved? I mentioned previously, if you can do this process, you can do a migration to Linux much more quickly and much more easily. Linux is worth considering for that reason alone. Now in my next video, I'll be doing some modifications on this Dell Vostro. I talked about it a little bit in a previous video. It is the one that is currently my platform for running my A3 scanner that just doesn't have adequate support with either Windows 10 or Linux. So I'm leaving Windows 7 on it. But I'm going to do some modifications, which I'll explain in the next video, that will allow me to use Linux on it, use it as my daily driver for a while, temporarily, while I do some migration videos on these tools that I have suggested today. Those tools I'm going to use on a Windows 7 system that hasn't been touched yet. I've kept it aside for this purpose. I haven't yet started to migrate. And you can watch me go through the steps, step by step, with my screenshots, and I'll edit it for time so that you're not just sitting there waiting for me to drink a cup of coffee for 20 minutes while it completes that task. I'll do the steps, edit it for time. You can see how the process works. So after I've done that hardware video, explain what I'm doing to make this a usable system for a daily driver, then after I've done those follow-up videos on the software pieces from this video, then I'll go on to do some videos on Linux. As I said, my experience migrating from Windows 7 to Windows 10 has varied wildly. Some were easy, some were absolute bears. But the steps that I've listed for you today, outlined for you, they should help you with your process, and I hope your process goes well. Thanks for watching.